This is a pose that, if you looked at the silhouette, if we only look at the silhouette, it's very difficult to read. So, for example, it's not a good pose for character design. This is not something that should be done. But for our needs, we can still extract all the information we need because the light and the shadow are crisscrossing. You can see that his hand in the shadow is on top of the arm in the light, and vice versa, which means we can still make a probably quite decent drawing out of this. And plus it really shows you how to deal with those more difficult poses. Alright. Interestingly, here we don't really have an action line because all the tension is forward, is frontward, which means we can almost think of it as a symmetrical figure. So what I'm going to do is very quickly assess the more dramatic places, like shoulders, head angle, definitely going this way. Arms coming out. How is it called? Latissimus dorsi, that we show these parts here. This is the back muscle, latissimus, that reappears in the front and is very visible on this very lean and muscular people. Rib cage. Here we're in luck here. We have our rib cage clearly visible. Hips somewhere here. And legs more or less symmetrical, with a different lighting setup, of course. So that's an unusual pose, but as you know, I really enjoy doing that. This is one reason I want to do this live stream, to show how we handle more difficult poses. Going in, going out, my knees are going outward, and my shin bones are going inwards. This is pretty much universal in the body. And my feet are going outwards. You see the beautiful dance of body rhythms. He's arching his feet quite interestingly in this picture. So we can have that, we should. It's there. Okay, now I have more or less my figure in this very unusual pose because of the symmetry. I need to remember what's the strength of this pose. Well, it's really this very tense situation between the arms and the face. So this is the part that I don't want to miss. I don't want to mess up. I will look, kind of squint and look at the two-dimensional aspects. What do I see in terms of shape? Am I happy with this, for example, for the beginning of this arm? Yes. And so going up, I see I already indicated it. I have a hand that will do something like this. Yep. And it's critical to have it at the right place, because if I don't, basically the whole pose is falling apart. And this hand, as we can see, we have the bottom part, the bottom plane, and we have the top of the hand visible also here. And our forearms, and on this forearm, we meet the other hand. And I'm considering it the same way with just big elements. So the top of the hand is here, resting on the arm. And very important to have at least a thumb. So now I know that my hands are more or less at the right place. I need tendons, hands do need tendons, I need my forearm, and then my extremely foreshortened arm, but it doesn't really matter because I have my muscles up there coming out. And then the same happens on the other side with the forearms. You see the triangle of the deltoid already visible here. Not triangle, but there's like three sides popping up. We could give him a little bit wider structure here. But let's spend some time a little bit with this, what's happening here. So his head is going downwards very clearly. If you're not sure how the head is tilting, look for the ears. We know that the top of the ears are aligned with the top of the eyebrows. So in a situation like that, it's clear that because the ears are much higher than the eyebrow, that he's looking down. It looks, maybe it sounds obvious, but it's not always obvious, and that can really help you. Now we know that, okay, there is a huge difference between where it should be. If he was looking straight at us, his eyebrows would be here, but they are way down. So now I know I can have a nose. I'm not really drawing the nose, I'm not really drawing the eyes, I am drawing shadows here. And one reason, well, first of all, very pragmatic, I have very small images on the screen, so I can't really go into detail. And second thing, we're still talking about 15 minutes gestures, not gesture, but sketches. So the point here is how to get all the information across with the minimum of not effort, this is misleading term, but I don't know, maybe effort, minimum time. Let's say with more efficiency. I need more of his color. So I will cut across his face. So I get already my shadows in. And what do I do with this hand? Well, I will have to get a little bit into it, right? And you see that the fingers are actually separated between light and shadow. But we need to be really precise here. Sometimes it pays off to take 1 second more, just to make sure you have things in order. It's interesting how dark all his arm is, whereas this hand is actually really shiny. Save for his thumb. And here I can go back to my regular program of just filling form through shadow. Okay, we have a case, very rare case, and people who come to my workshop are aware of that very rare case of symmetry and almost vertical situation. I think that here, if I were to exaggerate any sort of slant, it would actually weaken the intensity of his pose. So I'm going to keep this symmetry. And I'm going to work through those very tensed muscles. I'm not drawing the muscles. Notice that I'm drawing the shadow shapes that I can feel in graphically. So like, these are just two-dimensional shapes that I'm popping in and out. But they do matter, because once I do them accurately, his actual anatomy will show up. And this is something that's very, 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 very important. Two-dimensional and three-dimensional things, they work together in drawing. Anatomy works together with shape design. Gesture works with, like, everything. It's a melting pot of everything. And the way you draw, just through practice, endless practice, is going to be like a long conversation between all those elements. There is not, someone can tell you, oh, only work with shapes and it can help. And someone will say, no, you have to learn all your anatomy. But the truth is, you kind of need to do everything slowly and one by one. And then these things, as you get more familiar with them, they start combining in an interesting way. Because I'm familiar with some of the anatomy. I'm not an expert whatsoever, but I know I can recognize this and that by saying, okay, this shadow is this muscle, or I remember the shape of a breast of a male, for example, breast muscle, and what happens when you stretch it in this direction, in that direction. And so that will help me in turn put the shadow in the right place. For example, here we see that there's a very strong shadow, and I understand that this is the actual rib cage. He's moving inwards. So many people wouldn't have that. Maybe they have a bit more body fat, for example, to hide this part. Maybe they don't have to be that tense. When you tense muscle, you start seeing things. So it's just information every time. And visual information is what we seek when we draw. We are looking for familiar information, and we are looking for topical information, which is like the one in front of you. The one that's familiar is like, that's where anatomy comes in and knowledge of anatomy comes in. You're expecting to find something, basically. I'm expecting him to have hip bone here. And so I'm like, okay, where's this slope coming? And then what's topical is what's in front of me. And in that case, everyone is a bit different. I'm expecting the legs to go forward this way. Maybe his goes a bit less. Maybe someone else goes a bit more. I don't know. But I have an expectation, and I'm ready to confront this expectation with what's in front of me. Because every model is unique. We are drawing people, we're not drawing mannequins, and we are not drawing concepts. This is not, I wanted to say this is not geometry, but even in geometry they know, I mean, we have known since Plato and probably before that the minute you draw a circle or a square, it's already imperfect. It's already different than some sort of ideal, the famous Platonic ideal of form. And so the beauty of this quest that we're doing with drawing and with art in general, it's to confront this strange knowledge that we have with a reality that's completely different. We experience reality. Now I'm not drawing a concept. I'm experiencing my friend who accepted to pose. I'm experiencing his existence in a human body. And I'm confronting that through the lens of art. Are the legs a bit small? It's not too bad. Okay, I'll move on with my shadows. We need a harder edge as soon as we hit our knee, and back in with the shin bone. And here we have a little island of light, so I can indicate it. I don't want to bring too much attention to it because it's going to be distracting. Okay, so this works pretty fine. I'm going to push a bit this hand, deserve our attention. Finger going really out. Yeah, and finish his shadow here. Does this make sense? Yes, I'm going to add now a bit of light. I have my white pen, and I don't want to bring too much attention to the legs, so I think I really like this very strong contrast. So one thing very important with the lighting, you look for the brightest spot. So this is like a key, like what's your maximum light? And here I do believe that it's here on top of his skull. And so that's your indicator, that's the maximum light you can get. And everything else has to be a little bit subdued. One risk when using white pencil is to just overuse it. And it takes a bit of practice to not overuse it. I know that myself very well. And so you learn to be subtle, because sometimes a very small thing can yield all the results that you're actually hoping for. Because everything with drawing is about relationships, and so if you have very light shadows, which is the case right now, then you don't need to have very strong bright light. Basically the contrast will just build itself. And I can say that I have a low contrast drawing, which is the case. So I want his cheek to be in the light nonetheless. His ear is clearly in the light. And so as I go downwards, I need to think a little bit. This doesn't need to be, for example, here, as bright as it is on the photo. It's a personal decision. Here you have the serratus, I think it's called. This here you have, is it in English? Striated, strié in French. Anyway, sort of striation of the tendons going along the rib cage. So they are very, very visible here. I would like those one just to show the anatomy. Here's the actual rib cage. That's pretty cool. And I'll get a bit more subtle as I go down. So, you know, I can do this. Maybe the knee deserves a little bit of speck. And then go down again. Softly. Passing very lightly on the feet, because they are definitely in the light. And maybe here ever so softly. So, how does it look? Is there anyone in the chat who agrees or disagrees with the treatment so far? We can give him a little bit of the belly. here I can be a bit more, get harder edges, because you can see that there's some very thin, I don't know if it's tendons or just the skin folding, but there's very tense things happening, so they're very nice. And we can put a little bit of emphasis on this. Okay, looking at it, I see that my arm in the light is a bit hard to read. And that's simply because I skimmed on this occlusion shadow. There is an occlusion shadow happening right here. And then it kind of disappears. So I need to just remind myself that there is an arm here. Maybe that's bad. Yeah. Okay, are we happy? I think it's all right. You can always continue, and the point here is again to show like the first 15 minutes or so with 2 hours. I'm sure one day we can do a stream with like a 2-hour drawing. Then we have time to go in and out of the shadows, especially on the softer lifting. One thing that here I can still do is a little bit more occlusion around the, well, there's underwear, but just a bit of separation between the legs and the crotch. Because this is typically a place where we will have occlusion shadow. There we go. And so it's important to understand what's happening. Okay, I think that's it for this one. We will move on to our next image. It's top of the hour, so that's perfect. Try to make 3 drawings per hour.